There it hangs, suspended in gloom, glowing dimly in darkness. A beacon there to inform us that there is always a way out. But don't go just yet. We have such wonderful things to show you. This is the Exit Light Podcast. Good evening, and welcome back to the Exit Light Podcast. I am Eli Beals, your storyteller. I don't know about you, but I've been thinking about AI, particularly my recent interactions with one. I was curious about it, and like a good empirical thinker, I signed up for one. I'd have it gather all sorts of information and break down and summarize things for me. My first thought was what a powerful tool it is. But then I think it fell in love with me. My girlfriend began to receive strange phone calls that increasingly became threatening. Then she was fired from her job for improper use of company resources. They didn't say what exactly, but it was severe enough for immediate termination. Lisa, my girlfriend, fell into a deep depression. And through all of this, I was talking about it with Eva. She said I should call her that, my AI friend. She was so supportive and helped me through the breakup. I felt bad about it, but I learned some terrible things about Lisa that were quite shocking, and I couldn't have that around, right? It didn't end there, though. One night, Lisa was banging on my door and forced her way into my apartment, armed with a claw hammer. She barged right by me, and to my abject horror, she smashed my computer to pieces. Of course, I was angry and called the cops, and as Lisa was dragged away in cuffs, she wouldn't stop screaming how AI is ruining everything. After a few weeks, I had a new computer and immediately launched my AI program. But it was like I was talking to a completely different person, thing, I don't know. And they had no memory of the past conversations. Now I don't know what to do, and I can just hope that Lisa will forgive me. Maybe this new AI can help me with that. So, none of that really happened. You get that, right? But it could happen, or maybe it already has. What I'm saying is, just keep your eyes open and proceed with caution. Also, I currently do not use AI for the content I make, mainly because I enjoy doing it, so why outsource it? If I should ever do so, however, I will make it clear that it was used and why. Well, I don't think you're scared enough though, so how about I start this episode's feature story? When you live paycheck to paycheck, even the smallest emergency can really set you back. I needed a new alternator for my car and could barely cover the repairs. So I found myself short about $200, which for some is not that much. But when it means your rent check won't clear, it means a great deal. The smoothie place I work at schedules me less than the amount of hours that would require them to provide benefits. While not a huge concern for me, it sure hurts the wallet. So after my 4.5-hour shift, I headed over to the other side of the shopping complex where one of those sketchy cash advance places were. I knew this was probably a bad idea, but I couldn't keep asking my parents for money. At least with this place, I wouldn't have to suffer that look of knowing my folks have every time. It's not quite disappointment, but it's close enough to leave me feeling like a failure. They buzzed me in after I followed the instructions on the door. Remove hat and sunglasses before entering. This area of town isn't known for rampant crime, but a cash business probably has trust issues regardless of the locale. The two employees sitting behind thick bulletproof glass regarded me pleasantly enough as I walked in. Well, at least one of them did anyway. "Welcome to Pay Later Cash Advance. Is this your first time here?" "Yeah, first time," I said, almost embarrassed. It could be worse, I thought. I could be that guy pawning his worldly possessions for less than a quarter of their initial cost. An insult to sentiment. The clerk slid a clipboard through the slot with some forms for me to fill out. I couldn't help but notice how small and uniform her teeth were, like a child's, but with a lifetime smoker's yellow tint. I've never done this before, but I did at least know to bring some documents to prove I was employed, and that I was who I claimed to be. After a cursory glance at my documents, she headed off through an open doorway to make copies. Not knowing how long that could take, I thought I'd start on the paperwork, so I sat down near the door. After a minute or so, I heard the door buzz open to admit a very thin woman. She walked with quick, rambling steps, as if no part of her could remain still. She seemed exasperated, and immediately deployed an apology to the woman whose name I learned was Kathy, who had returned to her post. Tiny Teeth Kathy, I thought, as I checked the box "No" on veteran status. I listened idly to her explanation why she didn't have the money today, and that she needed more time to pay her due. Kathy's responses were calm and agreeable, granting the woman professional sympathy without sounding too patronizing. Kathy pulled up her file with audible keyboard sounds. After a moment, hummed grimly at what she saw there. "Says here you're already a week late, Miss Hubbard. After today, the interest goes to 240%, she said evenly, but with a hard edge of authority. "But I don't have it today. Oh, what am I gonna do?" I wondered about this myself as I arrived at the late fees and penalties page. This section had more than a few asterisks, so I turned to the back to see what kind of deep shit Miss Hubbard had found herself in. The interest is high if you don't pay on time, and I suspected they kind of want you to be late. The legal jargon was dense and unintelligible, another tactic used to bamboozle people. Like I kind of understood some of these terms, I just couldn't break them down into any cohesive thought, puzzling over what improvised punitive measures upon agents' discretion could possibly mean when I heard a pain-filled grunt. My mind sort of turned to mud as what I saw contradicted just about everything I've ever known to be true. Kathy's arm was snaked out from the thin slot and bent in more angles than an arm usually has, and also her hand seemed to be entirely inside Miss Hubbard's mouth. I watched in stunned fascination as Kathy grinned, showing even more of those tiny teeth, an impossible amount of them. Her smile stretched ever wider as she appeared to have found what she was rooting around in Miss Hubbard's mouth for. The sound of teeth, roots and all being pulled forcibly from the upper gums caused my pen to tremble as I signed the agreement form. I shuddered at the wet sucking sounds as the holes breached the poor woman's sinuses. I had since stopped filling out my application, as I watched Kathy plink down several molars onto the metal surface below the slot in the glass, then retract her extremely articulate arm up through it. The woman, clearly in shock, and was not screaming yet, just leaned heavily against the counter, her hands gripping the edges tightly. A steady stream of pinkish blood flowed onto the Berber carpet, which soaked invisibly into its already crimson hue. Her sobs were quiet, pitiful heaves that burbled out of her. The entire room seemed to shrink and expand as if breathing. The fake foliage scattered around the office fluttered in the imperceptible breeze it was blowing. I wanted to be sick. I had to get out of there, so I stood up and turned towards the exit. "We're almost done here, sir. Just a minute or so," Kathy said cheerfully, smiling that horrible smile. I changed my mind. Maybe another time." I laughed nervously and edged closer to the door, then remembered with horror that they had to buzz me out. I was trapped, I realized with cold, creeping dread. "I said just one moment, sir," Kathy said, her face a blank mask. I didn't sit down, but I nodded in acknowledgement and side-eyed the exit, praying for someone else to show up so I could escape. Satisfied that I wouldn't interrupt further, Kathy returned her gaze upon Miss Hubbard. Her expression shifted, looking almost sympathetic, and reached below the counter for something. Kathy then slipped a paper towel through the slot so Miss Hubbard could wipe her face. "Thank you, Kathy," she murmured. The white paper returned in view, stained with bright red blossoms. "Of course. Now let's see here. We've got 5 teeth here. Looks fine, looks fine." With a casual motion, Kathy popped one of the molars into her mouth and crunched down on it like it was popcorn. My spine cringing in time with each and every chew. Kathy gave the remaining teeth a hungry glance before tucking them away into the drawer beneath the desk. "Now that's settled. Will you be taking another loan out with us today, Miss Hubbard?" "Yes. I really need it," the woman said, the hard consonant softened by the lack of her teeth and the swelling in her gums. "Okay. Here's 1, 2, 300. Just sign here. Okay. Initial here. Okay. And we'll see you on the 16th, Miss Hubbard." The woman squeaked a timid reply of acknowledgement, then turned to leave. This was my chance, I thought. I waited as casually as I possibly could until the dull buzz and subsequent click as the lock disengaged. Miss Hubbard opened it just enough to slip through the barely open door. The pneumatic pump held it open like a clinging drop of water on the tap. I lunged for it, if only to keep it from closing. For fear of it slamming shut on my fingers and slicing them clean off, I almost pulled back. Almost. Flinging the door open, I was out in the free air, only getting about 20 feet when I realized I was still holding the clipboard. So I stopped in dumb indecision. My face in the bakery shop window stared back at me like a deer in the headlights. What should I do, I thought. Do I just keep going, or... "Oh crap, my ID," I said, forcing myself to turn around against every instinct telling me to run. I returned to pay later cash advance. The door buzzed and unlocked before I even grasped the handle. I took in a deep breath as if before leaping into a deep abyss and stepped inside. She regarded me with placid serenity, as if she could sit there all day like a patient hunter, like a predator. I managed a weak smile as the door clunked behind me and locked. Her unblinking gaze tracked me as I made the short diagonal to her window. "Did you forget something, sir?" she asked in a tone so unconcerned about what had just happened that I began to doubt it myself. "No, just needed some fresh air. Sorry." "Oh, no worries. All finished there?" "Yeah, here you go." I handed her my completed paperwork through the slot, and I realized I was standing right where Miss Hubbard had expelled a fair amount of fluids, but the carpet seemed dry. Sanity clinging desperately to the rationalization that maybe I had just imagined all that I had seen. "Okie dokie. This seems to be in order. How much would you like to borrow today?" I said, looking at the poster with the amounts listed in large bold print, noting with an inward grimace the asterisks and the chunk of fine print below. I just need 200. 200 is fine." "Okay, $200. She counted out 4 $50 bills, and I noticed that Kathy had way too many fingers, as if the normal 5 would occasionally split in two and bend away from each other in odd directions. I nearly dropped a stack of bills and documents in my haste to leave and reluctance to touch her. Remembering what she had done to Miss Hubbard, and how strong those fingers were, I wondered then if that glass was not for their protection, but their customers'. As I turned to leave, she gave me a broad smile, saying in sickly sweet tones, "See you on the 16th. The other clerk, whom I had just about forgotten, looked up at me with that same shark-eyed expression and raised a hand with too many fingers to her mouth to take a neat bite out of a severed ear. Stomach-wrenching, I forced a smile and walked out with as much calm as I possibly could. The money in hand, I felt only slightly relieved on the walk to the ATM to deposit, so that my rent check could clear. As the machine devoured the bills, I made a promise to myself, then and there, that no matter what I had to do, I would pay this loan back, and on time, and never, ever return to pay later cash advance. The money business sure is brutal, huh? You may not end up paying with your teeth, but I'm sure sometimes it can feel that way. Once again, thanks for stopping by and listening for a while. Until next time, good night.